Good morning and welcome. Thanks for listening to Down and Dirty with Sharona. This is episode 3 of the new podcast that we introduced a couple of weeks ago. This is just Sharona spitting some thoughts about some of the hot topics that are going on in the world, and we've touched upon a lot of different things. Today we're going to talk a little bit about what happened in the National Football League last night with the Hall of Fame game being canceled. We'll talk about Renee Zellweger and the op-ed, I suppose you would call it, the post that she wrote for the Huffington website. Sort of similar in a sense to what Jennifer Aniston did not too long ago. I do believe we talked about that as well. We'll see what else is spinning around out there. By the way, if you know a Buffalo Bills fan, if you're a football fan, a National Football League fan, and you know a Buffalo Bills fan, give them a hug today. My goodness, what a snake bit training camp they have had. I think I've lost count of the number of injuries that they have sustained. And this morning we, as I was chatting on, I got an opportunity to chat with some of my old buddies, Josh and Bob at Memphis in the Morning, Talkback Live in the morning. I used to co-host a show on Yahoo Sports Radio called Game Over with Vashti and Sharona. That was a lot of fun, and hadn't had an opportunity to chat with them in a while. And so it was fun talking to them about the National Football League and about the Titans in particular. I live in Tennessee, and so the Titans are the NFL team of local interest, although there are fans from, the Nashville has a large contingent of Pittsburgh Steelers fans, among others. So, obviously there are other NFL teams that have fans in the area, but we do talk about the Titans quite a bit here because they are based in Nashville, and so they are the local team, so to speak. But, it's always sad to me to see injuries. You never want to see anyone get injured, but I don't know, for whatever reason, the training camp injuries get me the worst because, these are guys who have worked so hard, and here they are on the, a lot of times it's a young player, or even a veteran player. It doesn't really even matter. But, they work so hard, and they're gearing up for, a year that they hope and anticipate is going to be their best one yet. And then, to go down in training camp with an injury is it's just so sad to me. So, hug a Bills fan today. If you know one, they definitely need it. And, hug a fan who tried to go to see the Hall of Fame game. Very troubling and disappointing start, so to speak, to the NFL season with the cancellation of the Hall of Fame game. It was interesting watching that go down. Social media is always interesting. How we talk about things. You guys know that is kind of my focus. How we talk about things is fascinating to me, and so I was. We're gearing up for a new season. I'm back from hiatus, about to get back to writing more frequently. I've really missed it. We've been podcasting, I guess, for about a month now. The podcast has been back, and last week we've been ramping it up a little bit every week. Last week we did a 2-hour show, Back Talk with Sharona, that aired on Friday. Shout out to Mike Valverde, a great fantasy football guy who joined me on that, as well as my buddy Matt Wood. Now, Matt and I are going to be doing a series called Chopping Wood with Matt and Sharona, and we're going to be highlighting some things in the political arena. We may touch upon some other things too. We'll see. But we started a political discussion that Matt's a very smart guy. He's a computer guy, very smart guy. And I say this, but and I'm repeating myself, but it's so true. I always walk away from our conversations, being challenged in some way, feeling like I've learned something. And I enjoy those people so much, and it's always such a pleasure to talk to Matt. So we started a series. We'll sit down and chat again this Wednesday evening, and we'll air that conversation on Friday as part of that podcast. Wednesday, by the way, we will have a podcast. I'm going to be chatting once again with my boo, Sonia Greenfield, with her husband, Greg Greenfield. We also talk about politics. We talk about gaming. We talk about a lot of different things. I'm gonna have to get some of his bad takes on flossing, because flossing's kind of been. Listen, flossing is good. Don't let anybody steer you wrong. If we're team stay woke here at Back Talk, and we're hearing a lot of slander against flossing. I'm very much team flossing. I am an over flosser, quite proud of it. If you're dead set on running around here with old food and plaque stuck between your teeth, please don't close talk me. That's all I got to say. Just please don't. Dental hygiene is important. Oral hygiene is important. Floss. It's good for you. I promise. So, but the situation last night was interesting to watch it go down on social media. And, initially it was, and I wasn't sure. At first I thought, you were seeing pictures of the field, and I thought it was a surfing condition. We definitely see problems, and still in the year of our Lord, 2016, we are still seeing issues with the field in a lot of different places. And you would think the NFL has formed a committee. Thankfully, they're working on that, as it so happens, not just in the NFL, but in so many areas of life. You have to have a problem before you can address it. And, we do tend to be reactive rather than proactive, and that is an area that we could all work on, I suppose. But watching it go down, and at first I was like, okay, it's a problem with the field. But as it turns out, it does appear that it was a problem with the type of paint that was used, and someone associated with the Pro Football Hall of Fame used the wrong kind of paint. It was described as a tar-like substance that was a hazard, particularly in the end zones and along the sidelines. And I have no idea how this came about, but it did. That's certainly something that you would hope that the powers that be, and this is a Pro Football Hall of Fame thing. I know it's popular to hate Roger Goodell, and I completely understand it. I know that it's popular to blame the NFL for everything, but this to me does not look like it's an NFL issue. It looks to me to be a Pro Football Hall of Fame issue, and I'm sure that the fine fault, and they are fine faults. I've been to the Pro Football Hall. I've been to Canton on several occasions. It's a great trip. Please don't let this. And by the way, I'm very much against the NFL moving this game from Canton. Very much. I'm completely opposed to it. They have hosted this game. This has been a thing, and the fine folks, and they are fine folks at the Pro Football Hall of Fame, will get this fixed. This will be fixed. This I feel relatively certain that this will never happen again. And the Canton trip, if you've never made it, make it. The Hall of Fame is so awesome. There's so much history there, and it is a fun time. It's a great time, and you should do it at least once in your lifetime. And I'm sure that they will fix this, and it will not be a problem again. But it's definitely a black eye on the NFL. It's a black eye for the league. Could the NFL have realized that this was a problem sooner? It almost reminds me of the whole conversation between big government and small government. We're all a big fan of small government until it comes to something that bothers us, and then we want the government to get involved. I mean, how much oversight and big brotherness do you want to see from your NFL? I mean, at some point you've got to trust the local stadium, the local people to manage their self. And again, and I think the people at the Pro Football Hall of Fame will make sure that this never happens again. And so I hope that they don't move the game from there. It really is a great event, and there's so much history there, and um, but it's a black eye. There's no question, and I feel sorry for the guys who have worked so hard and we're so excited to possibly play in their first game, televised game for an NFL team, and we're trying to make a roster, whether it was for the Packers or Colts or for another team. This is one. It's the first game. It's of all the preseason excuse me, preseason games. That it's one of the most widely watched, and I feel sorry for them. And of course, I feel so sorry for the fans who did make that trip, who did invest all that time and money. And maybe the NFL and the Pro Football Hall of Fame can team up and do something, for in the form of a voucher for something. I'm quite leery of saying the NFL should do, because some things are just beyond your control. Mistakes are going to happen, and the Pro Football Hall of Fame is going to refund the ticket money. And I know that doesn't make up for, it reminds me in a way of the Super Bowl thing, the thing with Dallas, that happened. That was a weather condition, and that's kind of an act of God and a little bit, hard to predict. But anyway, it definitely was not the best start to the season, but I expect that we're going to have some exciting games to come, and things hopefully will start to look up, and hopefully we won't see too many more injuries. That's one of the things that has bothered me, as you get older and you start to to kind of feel your own mortality. You tend to pay more attention to these things, and of course we live in the social media era, the era of 24/7 news coverage on sports, and it's impossible to miss these things. These injuries are, and if you play fantasy sports, if you play fantasy football, you're definitely more cognizant of these injuries. And, that's kind of bothered me, over the course of the past few years, watching these injuries. And it feels like there are more frequent injuries. I don't know what the numbers are. We need to get Will Carroll back on the podcast and let him talk. Will is so knowledgeable about these things, such a great guy and so knowledgeable. We'll have to feel him out on that and see. I've had conversations with him before about this issue. I'll have to get him on and get his opinion on that. But it does seem like more and more you're seeing these injuries, and you're like, such a brutal game, and but we love it, right? I mean, we kind of love that about it. But it definitely wasn't the best start to the season. I think that hopefully we'll see things start to improve, and a lot of very interesting storylines going on. We'll talk about that a little bit more on the main podcast, which again, Wednesday, 10 o'clock, we'll have Greg Greenfield on talking about gaming and some other things. We probably won't go 2 hours on that podcast. We did a 2-hour podcast on Friday. I think for this week, because we are going back to a 2-day-a-week format, and because we are doing this quick, and this is only going to we'll only go 30 minutes this morning, doing a quick podcast, the Down and Dirty podcast. So we'll probably end up going back to a 1.5 hour format on the regular podcast. We'll see how long it's for Matt and Greg, and we haven't got fantasy guest for this week. We'll see about that. I might take a week off from talking. We've talked a lot of fantasy football, and we'll see. We'll see how things go, how the week goes. It's a busy week for me. I've got a lot going on, and with all these other things, and I've got to start writing again. My writing fingers are twitching as we speak. They're itching. The tips of my fingers are itching to get back to that keyboard. I spent yesterday. This is kind of how crazy it's been. I hadn't really, it's been like what's on fire, because we were on hiatus and dealing with. We had so many things going on in our family, dealing with health, a health situation. There was a death. We had proms and graduations, and so and it was in that sense, it was great getting to spend time with all of my family. I have a very big family. It's great getting to spend that time, but I did miss being writing and podcasting and doing all those things that I love, and so it feels good to be back doing that. But I spent it was during those months, it was like, what's on fire? Let me put out this fire. Let me put out that fire. And so yesterday I literally spent the majority, certainly the afternoon and into the evening, working on my email inbox, and I've almost got it cleared out, almost gone through everything and cleared everything out. And I, on Twitter, I use Twitter lists. By the way, I'm going to be doing some fantasy writing for Inside the Pylon this next season. And I created a Twitter list. So if you're listening out there and you're affiliated with Inside the Pylon, please hit me up on Twitter. Let me add you to the list. I want to get a good Twitter list that I can share with everybody so that you can be found easily. I've got a fantasy football list. If you're a fantasy football person and you're not on that, please holla at your girl on Twitter, Sports by Sharona, and we'll get you added to that. And I've got other various and sundry lists out there. If you want to be a part of any of them, just let me know, and we'll make sure that gets taken care of. I've spent all of this time going through my email inbox, and I've still got some work to do, but it feels so good. It's just so cleansing and freeing to do that kind of maintenance. And so we're looking forward to a big sports season starting with starting with the NFL season and other things. But I want to talk to you guys. The Olympics are going on, and I wanted to share some thoughts about the Olympics. I'm as patriotic as anybody, and the Olympics are such a great event for athletes, particularly women. It's a great opportunity for women who participate in gymnastics and swimming. Just to name a few, and I'm not immune to the wonderful opportunities that the Olympics provide for athletes, but I'm also, I guess again, I'm just, I'm getting older, and it's like, you're not everybody does, but maybe, it's safe to say that for me, I always have felt like I was, conscious and socially conscious and aware, but I feel like I'm much more aware about how hypocritical that we are, and I'm so troubled about the things that we see with the Olympics and what the host countries do, and how how they take advantage of their destitute, the poor of their countries, and what can happen to the environment. And we're seeing that with Rio, which I've never been there, but from everything that I've seen and heard about, it's a beautiful place. And but it, what has happened as a result of hosting these games is deplorable. It's absolutely deplorable. And so you've got to have those two things juxtaposed upon each other. It is troubling to me. We definitely need to do better And but the United States is doing very well, and shout out to all of the athletes who are representing this nation so well. Michael Phelps, Katie Ledecky, uh, just to name a few. And it's it's fun to see the pride that we have in those men and women who are competing so well for this great country. But I'm reminded about how we still have so far to go by two things that happened as coverage of the Olympics has gone down. The first is that NBC, which is definitely needs a lot of work in their coverage of this event. We'll have to talk about that on the main podcast. We're going to run out of time. I really only want to do 30 minutes this morning. A lot of problems associated with what NBC is doing, but one of the biggest things is that their tape delay thing, and they tried to explain. You guys, I legitimately question who some of the heads of these major companies have around them, because we see way too often such tone deaf and misogynistic statements, and we talk about that on this show a lot. And I didn't pull up the article, but NBC, through its one of the head honchos, to borrow a word, one of the head honchos came out and said, well, it's okay that we're on tape delayed because the Olympics are the viewership of the Olympics are primarily women. It's for women, and basically women don't care about sports. Which, are you kidding me? I mean, how ill-informed and ignorant are you? Again, you're like, who is around you? Who is informing you? Do you have any women in your inner circle who are giving you, advice on these things? Because you sound stupid. You just sound stupid. And I'm relatively certain that they don't have women around them to formulate these thoughts and opinions, because they're gross and awful, and we've got to do better. And but it's I'm sitting here the year of our August 8th, 2016, and some dude who helps run a major media conglomerate thinks women don't care about sports. Are you kidding me? I mean, you need to put some women around you, whoever you are, and do better, because women definitely care about sports. And it's amazing how ignorant that statement was. So and then the other thing, the Chicago Tribune. There are a lot of awesome women who are competing in the Olympics, and one of the young women, one of the women that is competing. I'm pulling this one up because I want to get her name right, and to and to get the tweet right. So bear with me as I'm scrolling back. So the Tribune, the Chicago Tribune, sent out a tweet, and instead of identifying this woman who had such a great accomplishment, she won a medal at the Olympics. Instead of identifying her and allowing her to have her own agency, they identified her as the wife of a Chicago Bear, as if she didn't have her own identity, as if she didn't have her own, she was just an appendage. And, I mean, this kind of goes back to, the old Adam and Eve story from the Bible, with Eve being the, formed from Adam's rib, and, it we're still, again, I'm looking at the August 8th, 2016. She doesn't have her own identity. She doesn't have her own, she doesn't even get to be identified by her own name. It's the wife of, and it doesn't even mention her. So here it is. This is the tweet. Chicago Tribune. Wife of a Bears lineman wins a bronze medal today in Rio Olympics. It's got her picture. Thankfully, they included her picture. Her name is Corey Cogdell. She is the wife of Bears offensive lineman Mitch Unrain, and she won a bronze medal in women's trap shooting. This happened on Sunday, and instead of identifying her by her own name and her own accomplishment, they chose to identify her as the wife of a Bears lineman. And, I think that shows you how, how much farther we have to go. Women still don't have agency. Not over their own name, over their own accomplishments, over their own body. It's over their own narratives. We're working on that. I think we're slowly and gradually starting to assume agency over our own narratives. And by the way, on Thursday's Down and Dirty, I think I'm going to talk about all the courageous and brave women who are coming forward to talk about sexual harassment, because it's still very much, and along with that, I'm going to talk about an incident that happened in, let me pull this one up too, because this one is troubling, and well, but I want to talk about, the women who are coming forward and talking about sexual harassment, and the young man who came forward to talk about the racial harassment that he experienced in prep sports, and the pressure that we feel to hide and not talk about discrimination, to hide and not mention these things, and which kind of leads me to Renee Zellweger and the op-ed that she wrote for Huffington News, the Huffington Post website, and she's been under a lot of scrutiny, and there's been a lot of speculation, about whether or not she had plastic surgery, and I read something kind of interesting in the New York Post last night by a woman who was a big, huge Trump supporter, which automatically, puts her in a "Are you stupid" category for me. But she had some interesting things to say, as if because Renee Zellweger is an actor who makes her living in Hollywood, that her opinion is somehow less important. And you can miss me with that, honey. You miss me completely and utterly with your nonsense on that. It's great to me to see Renee Zellweger, to see Jennifer Aniston come forward and talk, because they've lived it. Yeah, they've lived it, and they have dealt with it, and they know what it's like, and I think their voices are important. And shout out to them for having the courage to do that, and for coming forward. And if we don't take control of our own narratives, well, we're never going to start to see any progress. And so I think we're living in still troubling times, but exciting times. So, yeah, it's kind of interesting. That's it for today. Quick show. This is a quickie podcast. Again, we do about 45 minutes, a couple of times a week, Down and Dirty. This is episode 3. I thank you for tuning in. We will be back on Wednesday with the first of 2 main podcasts about Talk with Sharona, talking about sports, gaming, entertainment, politics, you name it. We run the gamut here. We talk about a lot of different things. So we hope that you'll tune in for that. Again, on Friday, we'll be setting up those things. You can follow me on Twitter, Sports by Sharona. If there's anything that you want me to talk about, weigh in on, please hit me up. Please let me know. I'm always happy to touch upon things that are of interest to you. I hope that you have a wonderful day. Happy Monday, and we will be back with this podcast on Thursday.